And tonight on the Daily Wrap, 24 hours later, we now know the names of the 4 Marines killed in yesterday's attacks in Tennessee. We'll talk to former NYPD Commissioner Bernard Kerik about what happened and what's to expect in the coming days. Also, Steve Malzberg joins us to discuss the war with radical Islam. And Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, 2 men cut from the same cloth? This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the Daily Wrap, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host Rick Unger. Good to see you on this Friday.
Good to be here. A little better mood than yesterday. Tough day.
Yeah, it was a very tough day indeed.
Today we're still trying to sort it all out.
Among other things that we may talk about.
It's going surprisingly slowly, it seems to me. This figuring out what happened and why.
Considering there's a cadre of FBI agents
and we all
right
think
now.
We have a pretty darn good idea, but we're just not getting the final word on it.
Well, measure twice, cut once, as they say.
Yeah.
Yes. To Mr. Unger's right, former Navy SEAL, former FBI specialist, and president of Continued Services, Jonathan Gilliam is back. Thanks, John, for joining us.
Good to be here.
And finally, Forbes.com columnist and Emmy winner, he is Bill Tucker. Bill?
Thanks. Good to be
accomplished. Welcome, everybody. Let's get right to the Daily Download. And 24 hours ago, Mohammed Youssef Abdulaziz attacked 2 military facilities in Chattanooga, killing 4 Marines. 40-year-old Gunnery Sergeant Thomas J. Sullivan, 21-year-old Lance Corporal Skip Wells, 27-year-old Sergeant Carson Holmquist, and 37-year-old Staff Sergeant David Wyatt. Both Sergeant Holmquist and Staff Sergeant Wyatt leave behind widows and young children. Investigators are searching for a motive, but believe this might have been an ISIS-inspired event. Today, the U.S. Attorney for Eastern Tennessee, Bill Killian, says they are treating this shooting as an act of terror.
The active shooter situation is being treated as a terrorism investigation. It is being led by the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, and we will continue to investigate it as an act of terrorism until the proof shows us otherwise.
Let's bring in Bernard Kerik. He was the former NYPD police commissioner and now CEO and founder of the Kerik Group, LLC. Bernie, you've been all too close to acts of terrorism during your career, including overseeing the NYPD during 9/11, obviously. Are you surprised that this early in the investigation that they're calling the shooting terrorism until proved otherwise?
No, I don't think so, based on what they know already. And listen, you have to look at the history of what's happened in this country since September 11th, 2001. We've had in excess of 70 attempted attacks or attacks on the homeland, many inspired by ISIS or Al-Qaeda. In this situation, it's probably going to be the same, but no one should be surprised if it is. They continue to say that they're coming. They continue to say that they want these lone wolf attacks. They inspire and motivate others to do them. Nobody should be surprised if that's the case.
Bernie, it's Rick Unger. I'm curious. The one thing that I've seen that would lead one to believe that there's a connection here with ISIL was that tweet that seemed to show up from an ISIS-related Twitter account yesterday about 15 minutes before with a threatening tone and saying, hashtag Chattanooga.
Right.
Are you aware of anything that's been disclosed today? Because I haven't heard any more. You have better contacts that would suggest they're finding more connections between this guy and ISIL.
No, there's nothing out there yet that's been released, but I'm sure that the FBI is, they're on it. It seems extremely coincidental. If it had nothing to do with this, I probably think it did. But it's going to take a little time for them to get through this guy's computers, get through his family, look at his associates, look at those weapons, where the weapons came from, the ammunition. This investigation is only just beginning, and it's going to take a little while to feather it all out.
Bernie, since 2009, 31 people have died during attacks on military facilities in the U.S. At what point do we decide to start arming these people, even at recruiting centers for that matter, because they just seem to be sitting ducks at this point?
Well, listen, I just wrote something on this. I think our military installations, both soft and hard, should be armed, and our military servicemen and women and their families should be able to protect themselves. Walk into a Social Security office anywhere in this country, and there will be an armed guard at the door. There will be bulletproof windows or glass partitions between the tellers in the Social Security office and the people coming to the office, for service. That's a Social Security office. ISIS isn't threatening them publicly over the internet. They're not calling for their heads. You know what? Our military, our police personnel, local, state, federal, they are continued targets of this threat, and they need to be in a position to protect themselves. I think our men and women on these military bases should be armed and placed in a capacity where they can respond to protect their families and others if need be.
Bernardo, this is Jonathan Gillum, your good friend here. I just wanted to I wanted to ask you a question specifically for you and your experience. As you said a minute ago, ISIS has told us that they want to target us, that they're coming here. I mean, the reality is, and you know this just as well, if not better than anybody, fundamental Islam has been here, is targeting us, and we can almost for sure say that regardless of whether this guy was connected to ISIS or not, he's almost 100% positively connected to fundamental Islam and that part of the movement. So what I want to hear from you is that, you were there after 9/11, the different changes that happened at One Police Plaza for NYPD. How did the physical security change? How did the mindset change? And how could that be adapted to the DOD? Because they definitely need to take a big learning lesson from the NYPD, because their soft targets in the DOD are out of control.
But you know what, John? All you have to do is take a ride in southern Manhattan, and most of the barriers that are up today, I put in the aftermath of the attacks on the towers and in New York City. You can't get nowhere near the Pentagon. You can't get nowhere near some of the hardened targets in the military. But you still have bases in this country that are open bases. You have recruitment centers and recruitment stations that have absolutely no security. Their front windows aren't even, they're not bulletproof. We have to really take a step back, look at the threats we face, look at the threats we faced over the last 14 years, and the increasing threat, the increasing constant threat that we're under, and come to the realization this may not be a conventional war that we're fighting. We're not fighting a state, but we definitely are fighting an enemy that is here in this country. James Comey, the director of the FBI, has said it on numerous occasions. They're looking at several hundreds, if not thousands, of people in this country and coming into this country that we have to be concerned with. Well, it's time to harden those targets, make sure our military personnel, our law enforcement personnel are protected.
Barney, Bill Tucker here in New York. Thanks for being on with us. I'm not a fatalist by any stretch of the imagination, and you hinted at this in your answer. What can we really do to stop these people? This is a theocratic movement. This isn't kill and get out. These are people who kill and will be killed. We got about 30 seconds, so I ask you a quick question, but a long answer. Sorry.
I've talked about this for years. Here's the problem. This isn't a diplomatic solution.
Right.
There's no negotiating here. They're going to kill us, or we're going to kill them. It's one or the other. And I think the big part of this is the educating the American the psyche. There are a lot of people out there, they believe we can negotiate, we can be diplomatic, we can talk to them. It's not happening. So the sooner we learn that, we come to that realization, the better off we're going to be.
Bernard Kerik, former NYPD commissioner, thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, no better person to have on about this than you tonight, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Okay. Rick, final thought.
When we come back, I hope we can talk a little bit more, because there's a part of this in protecting these soft targets and the military guys who live there that we're not addressing. What happens in small towns where they're all just walking the streets because the towns are based on the bases. I want to talk about that.
Sure. Okay, and we will do so. More on the shooting in Chattanooga with our panel after the break. This is the Daily Wrap. Do not go anywhere.